Hi, this is art for elementary school teachers, and today we're going to make a simple color wheel. You're going to need a piece of watercolor paper, a watercolor palette, cup of water, a paintbrush, and a pencil. The first thing you want to do is get your colors wet. Just go through and put a little bit of water on all of your colors. This will get your paint moist and ready to paint with. The next thing we're going to do is draw our color wheel. We're going to use an organic shape called a freeform. And a freeform is a shape that starts and ends in the same place, but it doesn't have any jagged edges or straight lines. It's just all curvy like this. Draw lightly with your pencil. When you're teaching students, you have to remind them to draw light and not to apply too much pressure. They have a tendency to draw very dark, and if they mess up, they need to be able to erase. Also, with watercolor, it's okay if the pencil line shows. You just don't want it to be really dark. You're also going to draw a freeform in the middle. So we need a large freeform and a small freeform. Make sure you don't have any straight lines, points, or jagged edges. Next, we're going to draw a line that goes through the center of our freeform, and it's just an organic line like this. Can just go right through the center. Make sure you don't draw outside of the large freeform or inside the small freeform. We're going to draw 2 more lines over here and 2 more lines over here. And when you draw your lines, just make sure they are wavy, kind of an organic freeform type line. Of course, this lesson could be taught using a circle and rulers, but this is a nice, easy way to make a color wheel that is just a little more free, a little flowy. Start with red. Because we got our paint wet at the beginning, then you'll have paint that's ready to go. If you get your colors wet at the beginning, then they'll be moistened up and you'll be ready to paint with them. You never want to dig down into the color. You just paint with the water that's sitting on top of the color. Try to stay inside the lines. If you accidentally get out of the lines, it won't hurt. We're going to paint the outside black. So we're going to start with red, yellow, and blue. Red, yellow, and blue are the primary colors. So we're going to paint red, skip a space, and yellow. So we're going to paint red, yellow, and blue in every other space. For red, yellow, and blue, it doesn't matter what order they go in. So each time you paint a color, you want to swish your brush around in the water and then move to the next color. So red, yellow, and blue are the primary colors. I usually start by painting around the edges with the tip of the brush and then filling in the middle. Right, so we've got red, yellow, and blue, the primary colors. Next, when you're with your class, you want to talk about what happens when you mix red and yellow. Then you get orange. So you could have a separate piece of paper where they mix their color. If you have a paint palette, a plastic paint palette where they could actually play and mix colors, they'll enjoy that. Just make sure they know to put their colors in the right order. It would also be good if you could have a day where you talk about the primary colors and paint the primary colors, and then stop. And then the next day, talk about secondary colors and paint your secondary colors. If you paint your colors on the same day, they do have a tendency to bleed together. So it's good, perhaps paint the primary colors before lunch, the secondary colors after lunch, whatever you do to give it a little break so it can dry. So another thing you can do if the colors start to bleed together is you can just swish your brush around in the water, squeeze the paint out of it so you have a dry brush, and then you can go along and clean up the color that bled into the wrong color. So your brush can work like a sponge. You can also leave a little gap between the two shapes so that there's a bridge keeping the water from, or keeping the colors from bleeding together. Okay, when you mix yellow and blue, you get green. So once again, if the kids had the opportunity to practice on another piece of paper mixing their colors, that would be great. You can have your kids mix watercolors together if you have a plastic palette. But watercolor sets are amazing. They have red, yellow, green, blue, purple, so you don't really need to mix watercolors. You can, of course. But for a simple watercolor assignment like this, just using the colors that are on the palette will work out perfectly. So you can see here I left a little white gap in between the two colors because I don't want the colors to bleed together. Next, I'm going to paint purple. Red and blue, when mixed together, make purple. And when I dip into the purple, I'm just getting a little bit of the color that's in the water that's sitting on top of the color. Try to paint around the edges first. Okay, next we're going to paint the center black. So you can also talk about neutral colors. Neutral colors are black, gray, white, and brown. So you've got a little bit of water sitting on top of your black. I'm going to add a little bit more because as you're painting, it has a tendency to dry out a little bit. And it dribbled. I can just use my brush as a sponge to clean that up. So I just squeeze all the water out of my brush and clean that up. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is just dip into the black, just a little bit of that water that's sitting on top of the black. I'm also going to try not to actually touch my colors because technically if you had time, you would want your students to let it dry completely before painting the black. So you could have a third day where you talk about the neutral colors and paint your neutral colors. Kids may not understand that they need to leave that little bridge or little gap in between their colors to keep them from bleeding together. So giving it a chance to dry would be great for them. So you could stop here, or you could go ahead and paint the background. So you can paint all around your freeform with black. And I just chose black because it's a neutral color and it really sets all the other colors off. So I'm just going around the edges. I'm going to get some fresh water to pull that color out. just turning my paper so I can reach it. That's also a good thing to tell your students as well, to not reach over their paper, but to line up their paper so that the section they are painting is closer to their body. It's also a good idea to have your paint close to your water and your hand so that you don't have to reach over your painting to get paint, because you could dribble. This is a good project to do before talking about complementary colors or warm and cool colors. Color wheels are used by all artists. Professional artists use color wheels all the time. It's just very handy. Color wheels can be much more complicated than this. This is just a good color wheel to do with young elementary students. So here you go. We've got a color wheel with red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. You could then talk about the fact that colors that are straight across from each other, like red and green, are complementary colors. Purple and yellow are complementary colors. Blue and orange are complementary colors. Red, orange, and yellow are warm colors. Purple, blue, and green are cool colors. So this is a good introduction into projects that revolve around warm colors or complementary colors or cool colors. Thank you.